Working as a 911 dispatcher in Las Vegas is like living in an invisible minefield. At any moment, anything could explode. Car accidents, overdoses, shootings, couples of fights that end in tragedy. I've heard it all. Desperate screams, whispers of someone dying, deafening silence on the other end of the line. And I've learned to separate real panic from feigned panic. True fear has a different sound. That Friday night, the city was pulsating. It was the end of the month, salaries paid, tourists filling the casinos. The radio at the station was crackling incessantly, and my screen flashed like a macabre Christmas tree. Calls, alerts, emergencies queued up. I was on my 12th consecutive shift. Cold coffee, heavy eyes, mind on autopilot. Until the phone rang, and something changed. The voice on the other end was a woman's. Shaky, breathless, but not hysterical. She spoke softly, as if afraid someone or something would hear her. Vertigo Casino. There's something wrong here. Very wrong. Vertigo Casino. The name alone gave me an involuntary shiver. That old building in downtown Vegas. Opened in the 1970s, closed in the 1990s after a series of fires, and recently reopened as a retro experience. It always had a reputation for being eerie. Some veteran cops avoided even passing by it. They said the place smelled like ancient death. I tried to locate the call, but the geolocation started to fail. The signal was unstable. The triangulation was irregular. Something that had never happened before in the plant's systems. As if the building were outside the urban grid, as if it were on a different frequency. Listen to me. A man came in. He didn't come out. He's still playing, but he's not alive anymore. The call dropped before I could answer. The silence that followed felt like it weighed heavily. I stared at the screen, trying to reconnect, trying to understand, but it was as if the call had never happened. Only the background sound echoed in my headphones, something like a roulette wheel spinning, and an almost imperceptible whisper. There was no caller name. There was no registered number. Only the phrase registered in the system. Vertigo Casino, room 66. That's when I knew. This was no ordinary night. After that connection, something inside me stirred. It wasn't just professional instinct. It was an old, visceral chill that ran down my spine like a melting drop of ice. I jotted down what little I could glean from the connection and alerted the nearest patrol car. 2 officers were assigned. Ramirez, a veteran who'd seen it all on the streets of Vegas, and Carter, a rookie, still with that naive glint in his eye. As they drove away, I monitored everything through the central station. The traffic cameras, the patrol car's GPS, the radio communications. It was like watching a trail of ants heading straight for a black hole. The Vertigo Casino loomed large on the outside camera's display like a tumor in the city. A dirty facade, a failing sign, lights flickering with an almost hypnotic frequency. When the officers entered the lobby, everything seemed too ordinary. People gambling, drinking, laughing loudly. But Ramirez soon noticed something strange. No one seemed to be looking at them. It was as if the patrons were stuck in a repetitive trance, like zombies feeding endless slots. The receptionist, pale, with sunken eyes, confirmed the strangeness. A woman in tears had left the reception minutes earlier, saying her boyfriend was trapped in the room. She didn't give her name. She simply said, "He won't leave. He won't stop. He lost and he can't stop." In the internal system, the reservation was registered in the name of Michael Rowe, 38 years old, from Colorado. Check-in was at 6 p.m. with no scheduled checkout. The form indicated continuous use of the casino card, sir, with excessive spending on electronic games. But the strange thing was the cameras. As I accessed the files, I saw something that made me stop breathing for a few seconds. The footage from the 6th floor hallway showed Michael entering room 66 at 10:12 p.m. And then, nothing. He didn't leave. He didn't return. But what was most disturbing was his behavior before that. In the game room, he paced in circles, muttering to himself. He stared at the machines as if he heard voices coming from them. He pressed the buttons with silent fury, unblinking, as if he were being controlled. Ramirez and Carter went upstairs. Their body cams transmitted real-time images to my control center. The hallway was long, dimly lit and seemed longer than usual. The sixth floor of Vertigo has always had a reputation for malfunctioning digital maps. Technicians said the building's plans were inconsistent, that the floors didn't match the structure. As they walked, the radios began to crackle, loose phrases, voices overlapping. But what caught their attention was a bizarre detail. Room 66 seemed to be a little further away than the end of the corridor, as if the corridor extended as they advanced. Carter commented, "The corridor is changing." Ramirez ignored it, but his camera was shaking. He felt something. The room was colder, much colder. When they reached door 66, they both stopped. The lock was intact. No sound from inside. They knocked. Nothing. They knocked again. A faint sound, like the scratching of nails on carpet, answered from the other side. With authorization from the central office, they broke in. The image froze for a second. A strange glitch. And then they came in. Room 66 was different. As Ramirez and Carter walked through the door to room 66, the broadcast sound immediately distorted. A low hum began to echo in my headphones, like someone running a fingernail over a scratched vinyl record. The images cut out, as if the camera were trying to capture something that didn't exist in our plane of reality. The room felt out of place. The curtains were closed, but a reddish glow seeped through the cracks, like neon light filtered through blood. The TV was on, but it wasn't broadcasting any channels, just a static image, streaked with interference, while the sound was reversed, voices in reverse, words that sounded like someone who had suffocated to death. The wall clock was spinning counterclockwise. The minute hand moved in erratic circles, while the hour hand trembled as if struggling to stay still. In the center of the bed, Michael Rowe sat motionless. He wore the same clothes as the security camera, but he looked worn, and not just physically. There was something wrong with him, something deeply wrong. His eyes were two black spheres, without irises, without reflection, empty. Yet he stared directly into Carter's camera, as if he knew someone on the other side was watching him. Ramirez approached slowly, trying to call out to the man. "Mr. Rowe, are you listening? Is everything okay?" Michael turned his head with a sharp snap, as if his neck were made of dry twigs. And then he spoke, in a deep metallic voice that seemed to rise from the ground. The game never ended. It was at that moment that the bedroom doors disappeared. Literally. In the next instant, the body cams captured the two officers. Desperation as they tried to open what had become a smooth wall, with no cracks, no handles, and no way out. "Central, doors gone. Doors gone," Carter screamed, his breathing becoming faster and faster. Panic rose like an invisible gas. I tried to respond, but my own connection to the system began to fail. Lines of code appeared on the computer screen, as if something were hacking the system. But I knew it wasn't a virus. This was something much older. The TV in the room began to emit whispered phrases, voices in Latin or something similar. I managed to catch a few snippets before the audio became pure noise. "In the game, your soul hangs. He's still betting. The debt has not been paid." Carter tried to use the radio. His camera was shaking violently. He pointed it out the window, but outside there was no Vegas. There was no city. Just an endless desert, covered in a red haze that seemed to pulse like living flesh. Ramirez's nose began to bleed. His voice slowed, as if time around him were stretching. Michael Rowe finally stood up and walked to a corner of the room where a roulette wheel sat, apparently turned off. He spun the wheel. Ramirez's camera captured the movement, but instead of stopping on a number me, the wheel spun forever. And with each spin, the room changed. The walls wrinkled like old skin. The lamps flickered in time with heartbeats. The bed crumbled into sand, and the floor sank. Carter shouted, "He's pulling us! The room is eating us!" Ramirez tried to drag his partner away, but his arms went through Carter's body as if he were made of smoke. And then something happened that left me transfixed. For a brief moment, as the cameras shuffled, the two police officers appeared at the casino reception, but they were still in the room. The body cam footage showed Carter in tears kneeling, while Michael Rowe tirelessly spun the wheel. But the security camera at the reception, which I now also had access to, showed them both standing motionless. staring at the same wheel, as if in a trance. Two places at once, two versions of the same event, one in the real world, the other, where? I tried to end the transmission. No response. The control panel seemed to be stuck in the room as well. That's when I heard the most terrifying sound of the night, a whisper directly into my headphones, as if someone were right next to my ear. "You also answered." And then, everything went down. The cameras, the systems, the power plant lights. I was left in the dark, with the sound of the roulette wheel spinning in my ears, and that was it. After everything went dark, I was silent. The control room was dark, but there was a faint light coming from the computer screen, a strange code, pulsing as if it were alive. I tried rebooting the systems. Nothing worked. I tried calling the police station, technical support, anyone, but there was no connection, only a dry, metallic tone repeated endlessly, like a slot machine stuck on the same number. It was then that I heard it again, the woman's voice. "He's still playing. He can't stop." My body froze. It was the same voice from the first connection, the same intonation, the same desperation, but there was one detail, a detail I only noticed when I listened closely. She said exactly the same phrases, the same pauses, the same rhythm, like a recording, like an echo trapped in time. I went through the files. I looked at the old incident reports from the headquarters. I cross-referenced the data, and I found it, a report of a fire in the Vertigo Casino, exactly 3 years ago. A woman died, burned to death on the 6th floor, room 66. Her name, Lena Rowe, wife of Michael Rowe. The woman who called me had been dead for 3 years. I tried to end the call. I wanted to get rid of it, but the system refused. The screen displayed a message in red, flashing as a final warning. "Call in progress." I got up from my chair, and at that moment, I realized I was no longer at the station. I was in a room. The wallpaper was the same as in room 66. The TV was on static. The roulette wheel was spinning in the background, and in the mirror, reflected, was me, with a badge on my chest, but not the one from the central office. A badge with the number 66. The casino's security camera, minutes later, captured an impossible image. Me, sitting on the edge of the bed, staring blankly into space, while my voice was heard at reception, screaming for help. But no one moved. Everyone played. Everyone ignored it. And the last sentence recorded by the system, before everything disappeared, was, "Some calls aren't made by someone who's alive, and the person who answers doesn't always hang up." If I were you, would you answer a call from Casino Vertigo? What if the next call is on your phone? Would you know when the game is over? Or are you already playing, without knowing it? If you've survived this far, you might want to dig deeper. But be careful. Not everyone comes back from the next reading. Click the link below and discover even deeper horrors in our exclusive ebook, before it discovers you first. Sound of roulette stopping and turning on its own again.